Yay! So, hi, and welcome to my leadership series where I interviewed leaders that I love and that have impacted my life. And today I'm chatting with Mike, who was the VP of a startup division within the company we were both with, and my boss from 2000 to 2004-ish or so. We enjoyed many strategic conversations over the years, and Mike, who was a man who explored personal and business growth himself, was the one who happily sponsored a course I wanted to invest in. We even took our biggest customers and our entire team to an offsite meeting for a business course, growth type of course, that included, as I mentioned, personal growth. And it was in the middle of Texas, in Hunt, Texas, which was like in the middle of nowhere at that point in time. And one of my powerful takeaways from that course was not only a bonded team where the lines between customers and internal team blended for years to come, but also the content of the course. I remember it was like a lot of deep reflection. We also took the disc profile and I got a deck of cards. My favorite card said, "Some will, some won't. So what next?" And that applies to anything in life. And I've used it a lot over the years. Anyway, Mike has always been someone who had my back and that of our entire team. So we had so much fun over the years as we experienced the growing pains, as Mike would say, of entrepreneurship. He's one of my favorite bosses all time and a friend that I could talk about anything with. And he, to me, exemplifies what it means to be a rock star leader. And he's loved by many as a result of this. He has extensive experience as an entrepreneur, being the CEO of several larger dental labs and groups in North America and Canada, and currently serves as president of a big dental group focusing on digital, cosmetic, and implant dentistry. Outside of his work, his wife Tina, his kids, family, and friends are drivers, as he now has retired his golf clubs. He loves a good bottle of wine, some nice food, and yes, a good cigar. At least he used to. So, Mike, I'm so happy to chat with you about your leadership experience and the wisdom pearls you've acquired over the years. So, welcome. Is there anything you would like to add that I missed?
Yeah, I don't even know what to say to all those accolades. So thank you. Is my head getting bigger? Because I don't think of myself that way, but it's amazing to me how time flies. Like that seems like so long ago, but it really doesn't to me because, I tried to retire, but I still love this business. I'm 72 now. I still love this business though. And everything continues to change. And I'm just glad that I'm part of it. I don't play golf anymore. That was one of my favorite hobbies. I still like golf. I still watch it on TV. I play once or twice a year, but working now and still being involved in dentistry at this time when everything is changing so rapidly, it feels like you're standing on the 405 freeway, which I know where that is in California, and it feels like cars are coming at you, but it's new technology and change that's coming hard and fast. And I feel privileged to still be part of that operation and working with the Orem Group. It's a family-owned business. It's a wonderful company to be working for, and I still love it.
That's awesome. So if you were to look back at your career, what would you say were your drivers to achieve the success that you've achieved both in sales and as a leader in sales and, building companies, entrepreneurship, if you will?
Yeah, you can look around in the dental, not just in the dental business. I think anywhere, most people don't like change. I think I've been a creature of change, so I've constantly chased. I started off as a young technician making crowns and bridges and by hand, carving wax, carving stone and plaster. And probably because I grew up in the Detroit, Windsor area, which at one time, I don't know if we still are. I still live in Windsor, Ontario. I've moved around a lot, around the world. I've been pretty fortunate. But I'm back here living where I grew up in Windsor, Ontario, which was the automotive capital of the world. And when I was growing up as a kid working, in high school with part-time jobs, I always seemed to work with some kind of automotive related job. And for the last 100 years, the automotive business has continued to evolve and automate, and the dental technology business, at least that's what I thought, was still a business where we were like shoemakers making shoes by hand, carving wax, carving stone. So I was always chasing automation. And probably when we met, I had joined Noble Biocare, kind of gave up. I still owned the labs that I had in the Windsor area, but my children jumped in and started running those the businesses. And I joined Noble Biocare where you worked, and one of my first kicks at the can with Noble Biocare was launching their CAD/CAM division in 1995. And I mean, it was really a groundbreaking. And a lot of people say that Noble Biocare Procera was really the first movement into the digital arena. And now today, we're really moving into a lot of processes are digital, and AI is coming in a big way that I think is going to impact the dental business in a lot of positive ways, maybe in a few negative ways too. And so, I was always chasing technology. And so I feel privileged to have the career that I've had. But one thing I learned along the way is that it's still about people. The business is still about people. You can have all the automation, have all the robots you want, all the AI you want. This business is still about people and customer care. And so I wouldn't say I was the best technician in the world, probably not the best manager either. But I can tell you one thing that I am proud of. If you look on my shelf, I probably have 200 books about customer care. And you don't have to be smart. You just have to be passionate about customer care. And I became very passionate about customer care. It's how I grew my labs. We didn't have the best work or the best technicians, but I think we have the best customer care and the best support for customers. And I think it's still very, very important today. So, I work with a company that really cares about customers, and I think it's a big deal. And you know what? Customers are also people that work with you, people that you buy from, people that you sell to. And if you don't think that way, if you don't treat the people around you like they're important to you and not just, somebody that just is there to push the work out the door, you won't be as successful as you could be if you had people engaged, caring about what they're doing. I always thought dental laboratories, I don't want to generalize too much, but a lot of dental laboratories, things have changed quite a bit. Most labs now are moving into this digital format and are pretty clean places. But when I started in this business, a lot of the dental laboratories were plaster filled, plaster up and down the cupboards and walls, and kind of gungy places or in the basement of buildings. And so a lot of that has changed. It's become much more professional business and more digital now. And, I was always proud to have a very, very clean laboratory. I always wanted to have a place wherever I worked that people wanted to come to work, so, and that both having a nice facility, but also having a nice atmosphere where people like working. It's not Disney World. We've got work to do. We've got work to get out the door, but you should have fun. We should enjoy what you're doing. And that's kind of been my philosophy. And then I think because you mentioned earlier about, sponsoring you to take a leadership program. I mean, I've been a big believer in that, like since I was, 20 years old. I just told you I'm 72 now, and I still take leadership programs at Orem Group. We have a great leadership coach. His name's Chad Gibson. And it's very, very important. And I think, we just did a program in Ottawa. We have 60 employees there. And I wondered, because there are a lot of, people from other countries that work there. And I wonder, how are they going to take this? Because they've never done any leadership training. I thought, is this going to go sideways? Will they have this deer in the headlight look going, what's going on? And we did this leadership program about a month ago. And I can't believe how engaged the team was there and how engaged they are now in the subsequent weeks following that program. It's maybe 2 months ago now. And so I'm a big, big believer in leadership training and, investing in the people that work with you.
So spinning on this, like, what did you learn from the ups and downs of the growing pains, as you like to call it, like mergers, changes in leadership and politics, and how did it ultimately impact you internally and externally?
Well, you know me, and you've worked with me. It's a long time ago, but I like people. but also like I'm an operations guy. Like, so my title at Orem is President and Chief Operating Officer. And so, it's a tough job sometimes because I do like people, and sometimes you have to make hard decisions with people. And one of my favorite books is Good to Great, and the author talks a lot about it's not easy finding great people. So if you find a great person, get them on the bus, even if you don't know what you're going to do with them. The downside is if you have a person who's not great, not doing their job, not a fit for whatever reason, get them off the bus. And what I learned, maybe in this business, but I think it exists in other businesses as well, a lot of managers procrastinate on making changes when it comes to making changes with people because it's a hard job. It impacts people's lives. It takes their work and job away, their salary away. It impacts them financially. So it's a very, very tough part of any business, being a chief operating officer or a supervisor, where you have to make people decisions, especially decisions where you have to get rid of people. It doesn't sound very nice. I don't even like saying those words. I've always taken that part of my job very serious. Like, I've done a lot of operational things. In my last company, I was a CEO for a global company. I was responsible for North America, and it needed some optimization. And in the end days before I left that company and resigned and retired, I thought I could retire. I couldn't. I didn't like it. Before I left, we made a lot of changes with people and changes with some of the locations. I probably closed 5 or 6 of the offices that weren't functioning and that we really didn't need to be successful in that company. But I never took that stuff for granted. I mean, I would go there, I would cry with the people sometimes. I wouldn't sleep for a few nights when I have to talk to somebody about that. I would help them pack boxes, help them find another job, because that is the hard part of this job. But it's the reality. If you're going to be a good manager and you want to have optimized businesses, I mean, it's still about people. It's about materials. It's about profit. It's about product. But still, product. Henry Ford said it. I think it was Henry Ford or somebody famous said it, that without people, the other two things don't matter. Product and profit don't really matter because you won't get there. So, that was one of my hardest. That is still the hardest part of my job when we have to make changes. But we make a lot of good changes too. We hire a lot of good people. We do good people searches, and I can't say that word enough. It's about people. It's about leadership. And yeah, I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like how you rolled with the changes. So you focused on the people, you made the changes that you felt were necessary. You didn't necessarily like it, but your focus was on operations and building a company that continually expands. Yeah. What did you miss earlier in your career that you may have managed differently today with your current experience and wisdom, if you will? Would you have made different choices or decisions, or what's your philosophy as far as who you were then, who you are now? Would you change things?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I don't have many regrets. I've done 5 or 6 or 7 people would, I always joke about myself. I say I can't keep a job, and it makes people laugh because that's who I am. I still call myself an old lab guy from Windsor. Some of my friends say, oh yeah, you're an old lab guy from Windsor, Ontario. Because a lot of people don't even know where Windsor, Ontario is, to be honest with you. It's south of Detroit. Not many people know that. This is where I grew up. And I don't have many regrets. I've had a wonderful career with some great startup. Not every startup worked out where I made a lot of money either, but I just learned a lot at every step of the way. And I look back and I think, holy smokes, I've been around the world. I've been working all around in China. I've been working all around in Europe. I took some projects in South America and Brazil and in Mexico. I got to live in California for 5 or 6 or 7 years. We liked it there a lot. I don't have many regrets. Probably one regret. If I knew what I knew now, I would have started the change process earlier. I probably wouldn't have stayed in the lab in Windsor as long as I did. I would have jumped out earlier and done some things. But really not many regrets. I've had a wonderful career and it's still going. I feel blessed, actually, to be honest.
That's awesome. Well, it says a lot about who you are anyway. So, so what would you say from your perspective are the essential factors to be considered a great leader that creates happy, engaged salespeople, let's say, who perform? You touched on it a little before, but
Yeah, I think, as I said to you, like I'm working now with the CEO of Orem Group where I work. I'm president and chief operating officer, and I work with a great group of people, great CFO, and one of the owners, Grant, is the general manager of the Calgary location where our headquarters is. We have about 200 employees there. Um, but Mark Meyer is like so. Our visions are so well aligned about the growth of the company, and we are growing. We have some great things going on. We've made some great changes to keep up with a rapidly changing dental market. And Mark treats me like gold. Like I don't need pats on the back. I've been doing this for too long. You know, I don't have to work. I like this. I don't know what I would do if I retired right now because I don't have any hobbies and this is my hobby. I like doing this. But Mark is just really appreciative of the work that I do for him. And I'd like to think that, that's how people should be treated, like you want to be treated. And sometimes you have to make tough decisions. And I'm a big believer when I make a tough decision on a person, I don't procrastinate because I think I think it's like a circle. And if I make a mistake over here and I procrastinate, and then I make a decision over here at 9 o'clock, I make a decision that I'm not going to do anything. And then at 3 o'clock, I make a change with that person. And they might have missed a whole bunch of opportunities that would have been better for them. And now I took those opportunities away. So I don't procrastinate on things. I get things done. I'm a big believer in checklists and follow up. Follow up, I think, is incredibly important, but I can't say enough about it. It comes back to like working with people, being in good communications. And I think the most important thing is understanding expectations, managing expectations and understanding expectations. By that, I mean, if I'm working with UP, I want to know what are your expectations of the company and of me, because I'm definitely, when I hire you, I'm going to have expectations of you, what I need you to do, how I need you to perform, the goals that we're going for. So communication is extremely important. And so, in other words, if your expectations are, I'm joining the company, and by the third year, I want to have a Ferrari, and I know your salary is never going to get you there, then something's wrong with our expectations. We're too far apart, in what I can deliver. And so maybe that's not the greatest example, but it is all about managing what do you expect of me and what do I expect of you. And if we stay closely aligned, it's not always going to be perfect, but if we stay closely aligned, I think that's where good music starts, and that's where good alignment starts. And alignment's very important. If people in a company are not aligned, if you remember, I actually started a little program based on a book that I read called The Power of Alignment with Helene Canepa at Nobel Biocare. Everyone carried a little card. Are you aligned? And it was all about the values and the objectives of the company. And I think that it's really important to stay aligned and manage expectations, and both manage my expectations, but also understand and communicate what the expectations are of the people that work for me or work with me. If your expectations aren't aligned with mine and mine aren't aligned with yours, something's going to break at some point in time. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think you have a big point there. I mean, communication in any area of life is key, because when it breaks down, things go the way they go, right? And I think you mentioned this thing of being aligned, and that also means that you have to be very clear in what your vision and mission is as a company, and that's not always the case. And then you wonder why people are doing whatever they're doing. You have to have such, and not this politically correct type of vision mission statement, rather something that people can actually buy into, that is has all the elements to it, where it's clear, right? So are there any other leadership qualities per se that you think are important when you're a leader?
I also think that, you have to do what you say. I mean, so we have a great leadership coach. I mentioned his name earlier, Chad Gibson. And Chad's been teaching leadership. He worked for a company that Mark actually hired. Mark invested a lot of money in the people in our company. And I think that's important for people to understand that too. And they feel like they're part of something. When I look at the employees at Orem Group where I'm at today, a lot of the employees have been there 20, 25, 30 years. And I think that says a lot about the company. It says a lot about the founder, Hayo Meyer, who sadly passed away at Christmas time. But Hayo was a great leader. And I think if you ask anyone, why do you think Hayo was a great leader? Well, he took care of his people. He grew the business. He had a lot of qualities. He was a great technician, came from Germany, but he took care of the people that he worked with. And I think Chad exemplifies like leadership teaching and coaching, and it's all about not making excuses, doing what you say, doing it when you say, and it's just a lot about communication. And we've said that word a lot today. It's a lot about communication and working together and being aligned. And Chad's just a great leadership coach that keeps us. And when we talk about our objectives, we talk about, okay, where do we want to be in 2024? But we go to the end of 2024 and think about where do we want to be, and then we work backwards. How are we going to get there? And I think it's just a great way to manage a company and to be in clear communication with the people that are going to help you get there.
So continuing on communication and people, how do you explain energy when talking about a person having an energy of X from your perspective?
Well, again, we touched on it earlier. I mean, if you wake up in the morning, this is not a utopia or a panacea where you wake up every morning and go, God, I can't wait to get to work. I think that doesn't happen. I like this stuff, but that doesn't happen for me every day either. But if for the most part, you're feeling good about what you do. You're feeling like you have a future. You're feeling like you're treated well in the company, and vice versa. You're delivering on what you said you would do. I think that generates energy when you get up in the morning. The opposite of that is that, and I've been there where I've had projects where I wasn't quite happy anymore. It's probably why I've continued to make changes and go where I want to go, making the changes I want to make to get where I want to get. But if you wake up in the morning and you're not happy with what you're doing, you're not happy with the company you work for, you're not happy with the people you work with, it's pretty hard to energize yourself and get out of bed. And you can see that in some people. They just come in, they're just not happy. And it shows up in their performance. It shows up in who they are and how they relate to the other people they're working with, because that's important too. You don't have to be friends with everybody you work with, but certainly, there needs to be some cohesiveness and some team. You've heard that lots of the old adage of there's no I in team, but team is very important too. Pulling together people, getting them to work together and understanding. It's back to communication again, understanding what's my lane, what's my role. And when there's poor communication, people get out of their lane, they get outside their role, and that's when trouble starts. Things start to fall through the cracks. People start to get unhappy. This person's got their shoelace touching my shoelace, and then things start to happen negatively. So yeah.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, I mean, it's our own energy as well, right? It starts with us because we're responsible for our own energy. And then you have the energy of the team or people you interact with. I mean, it's clients just as well, or people in general when you're out and about. And the only thing we can control, as the saying goes, is ourselves. We can't.
Well, if you're a leader, you're walking around like with your shoulders rounded down and you're unhappy every day, because I've seen it, like where people have stuff, right? Everyone has stuff in their personal life. Now, it could be I'm going through a divorce, I've got a sick kid, I've got a sick mother, a sick father, I've got some financial troubles. People carry that stuff, but if you carry that as a leader, if you're carrying that and you're bringing that to work and you've got a group of people working for you, people pick up on that stuff pretty fast. And before you know it, it's like the old one tomato that's bad in the basket makes all the rest of the tomatoes bad. And I've seen that in with people that I've worked with. I've probably been that way myself. I'm not perfect either. I've had stuff, kids' sicknesses and stuff along the way, and parents' sicknesses, and yeah, you just have to balance. It's a balance of balancing those things, and trying not to bring that stuff to work with you. But it's also, if you're the leader, it's also trying to understand who you're working with and understanding maybe some of the things that people are going through and trying to help them manage it, and have a balance. Life's a lot about balance. I've gotten out of balance a lot, with things, and it's quite easy to have that happen. If you get out of balance as a leader, you're certainly going to disrupt the people around you. It's you can't avoid it. People know, people have antennas. They feel what's going on, and they know. You can tell the difference between a leader who's got energy and driving and leaving the baggage behind, or the leader who carries the baggage with them and it interferes with every aspect of the job, and sometimes important decisions too.
And people that work for them. Yeah, absolutely. Depending on if you're projecting your stuff onto other people, so to speak, or if you stick with it yourself, but it still affects. Absolutely. I can relate to having been in those situations, if you will. So when you interview people, you mentioned the importance of obviously alignment and making sure that, there's a fit in every way with both vision, mission, etc. Are there any other things that you look at when you hire them? And when it comes to building a team that you enjoy managing, what are the qualities that are the most important? Like, what do you look at when you're hiring and building teams, bottom line?
Yeah, I mean, I've been working for so long. I've interviewed so many people, and I actually still enjoy the interview process, because what I think I'm good at is first just making people comfortable, because that whole interview process it's very intimidating, or can be very intimidating. So I first try to make people just be yourself. Let's just talk. Like, this is not, and you can learn a lot if you listen, and I think, it's really, really important to hire quality people. If you are hiring someone, we do screening in our place, but I've done screening of employees like my whole career. I learned it from one of the first guys that I worked for, using some tools for screening people. But it always gets down, those are just tools. It always gets down to, the interview process. What was that person doing previously? Did they leave, and why did they leave there? What are some of the wins? And, and again, it all comes down to, what are your expectations for yourself? I always want to learn that. I want to find that out. And just to make sure there's a fit, the people that come on board. But well, I've had the pleasure of working with some amazing, I call them kids, but amazing young people that have, including yourself, Pia, who are people who just learn, listen. They're extremely coachable, and they get things done. They deliver on the expectations you have of them, and they do what it takes. Like that, when you look around today, I mean, I don't want to generalize, but things have changed. Things have changed a lot. I mean, what's really interesting now, I interview a lot of. I'm not interviewing as much as I did in the past, but I do want to be involved in the hires in our company. And it's interesting because there are a lot of like young people that have graduated with bachelor degrees, Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Commerce or Bachelor of Science degrees, but they have no work skills, and their expectations are through the roof. They don't want to do the work that it takes to get where they need to go in this business, especially in my business, the dental laboratory business. I mean, it's not for everybody. And at one time, there were more than 100 dental technology schools. Now there are less than 10 in the US. The average age of a person now is every 8 seconds, someone turns 65. I already passed that mark. But every 8 seconds, someone turns 65. So the demand, for instance, of dentures is going up, albeit maybe attached to implants. The supply of technicians who can make dentures is gone down. So thank God digital's coming, but we need to hire people who have some good technical skills, but who want to roll up their sleeves and learn. And that's hard these days, finding young people who want to. I don't want to generalize too much because there's still a lot of good people that we're hiring, but that it's getting harder to find people who want to just roll up their sleeves and put a couple hard years in while they learn the business. And now I see, when I talk to a lot of my friends who are electricians, plumbers, construction workers, they're having a lot of trouble finding people who want to come in and learn the business. That's how I learned this business, just as an apprentice in the dental lab. And things worked out for me, but things have changed. It's trickier.
I think one thing also, and I don't know if you agree with this, but it's also that everything is digital, because I've seen that myself. You try to look for a job and you're lost because 20 years ago, it was all networking or someone that just recommended you or what have you, or you knew the company. But now we're so global and the competition has no borders, so to speak, unless you have a job where you're required to be on site. But if you can work remotely, they can hire anyone. So it's hard to even get in touch with the people that are hiring. They're using third parties. So I think that could be part of it, like the visibility aspects, both as far as the companies that are looking for people, as well as people that are looking for jobs. There's like a glitch there because of the usage of software, for one, and not talking to the people to see if they have what it takes to do the job, so to speak.
We still have a number of employees working remotely, but I can tell you COVID, of course, changed the world in some good ways and a lot of bad ways, of course. But what I've learned, I work mostly remotely, and I have some really good folks on our team that work remotely, but I constantly coach them that if you're working remotely, never put yourself in a position where you think the person, your supervisor, your boss, whatever you want to call it. I don't use the word boss ever, by the way, either. I never use that word.
Yeah, no,
I don't like that actually. It's like I always tell my wife she's not the boss of me. We joke about it, but I don't like that word. But when people that are working with me, I constantly, if they're working remote, I tell them, don't put yourself in a position where somebody asks, what's that Mike Girard doing? Make sure that you're doing your job. You're also communicating proactively, the things that you're doing and what you're working on. I don't mean like every step. I just walked to the kitchen. I just took the milk out of the fridge. I don't want every step, but you need to be a good communicator if you're working remotely to make sure people understand the value and they get the value in working with you. Because I can tell you, and if you look around the world, not just in the dental business, a lot of companies have gone back to no more. Elon Musk got a pretty famous saying. He said, yes, you can still work remotely in this company after you put your first 40 hours in here inside, So a lot of companies have gone away from the remote working because a lot of people can't work. I'm generalizing again, but a lot of people don't work well remotely. They just don't. There's too many distractions at their house. When I come to work, I come into my office. I don't take a lunch pail with me, but I come into my office, which is attached to my house, but it's segregated. It's closed off. And I'm in this, I call it my Zoom room. I'm in this Zoom room for 8 or 10 hours a day. I still go to the company. Our headquarters are in Calgary. I'm there a couple of days a month, but I mostly work remotely because that's the choice. I've put almost 3 million miles on Delta. I'm just about to turn 3 million miles on Delta. And so, I haven't spent much time sleeping in my own bed in the last 25 or 30 years. I've traveled a lot, so I don't want to travel so much anymore. I feel blessed that I can work in this Zoom room. But trust me, I'm very proactive in the things that I do with my direct report, who's the CEO of the company. I just let him know what's going on. I keep him in communication, and I hope he never has to ask, what's Mike doing today, or what's Mike doing, or what value does he bring to the company. So I think it's really, really important because I think remote still works. I think a lot of people do a great job working remotely, but I think you have to manage it properly too.
I know that you've done a lot of personal and business growth. Have you taken any other assessments in addition to the DISC that we took many years ago?
Oh, I started a long time ago. I did a program that was the company at that time was called Landmark, and it
Hmm.
was kind of controversial. I mean, there was one guy who really was a leader in the dental space, and he used that whole concept, and I learned about it. I watched one of my dentists who took the program, and all of a sudden his practice started growing like crazy, and he told a couple of other dentists, and they took the program, and their practices started growing like crazy. So I had to find out what that was all about, and I still remember it was so long ago, probably way early on in my career, going to a program in California where I was like running up the hill and had a kind of like a Marine sergeant yelling, "You can make it!" And I thought I was going to die because I couldn't breathe. I was out of shape. I couldn't breathe, and had this Marine sergeant running beside me. And but the whole program then was all about communication, really kind of looking at yourself, looking inside yourself, who you are, what you where do you want to be, where do you want to go, and it was about not just about setting goals, but about learning about yourself. So I mean that started a long, long time ago. So what was interesting is when I joined Orem Group, which was almost 4 years ago in May, I'll be here with the company 4 years. Mark Meyer had already hired, Mark and Grant, the owners of Orem, had already hired a company called Vanto. And Vanto is a leadership growth company, invested a lot of money in really kind of teaching our employees, to do what you say, do it when you said when you're going to do it, and really all about learning about yourself, and about managing expectations, and mostly about communication, really about communication, and and now today Chad Gibson, who was with Vanto, now works with us as a personal coach to our leadership team, but also he teaches some programs to our staffing. And so along the way, like I became a junkie for reading about that stuff, and having tapes and videos, and going to leadership programs, I think I think it really helped. It really helped me a lot, and I pushed my I have 4 children and 3 grandchildren. My 4 kids are all adults now, and but I've also encouraged them and pushed them into programs, like that. My oldest daughter has been around the world learning about yoga. She went to NYU to learn marketing and creative arts and graphic design, but she became like a world-class yoga teacher. So she's still trying to make me do yoga. I made fun of her one day, bending my leg back to my head. I got it about 1 inch off the ground, and then I couldn't walk for 3 days. And she could take her back leg and stretch it to the back of her head. So I stopped making fun of yoga after I couldn't walk for 3 days trying to lift my leg. But and now when I look around, she teaches corporate yoga, as kind of a hobby, like teaches it, in hospitals and places. And now she teaches young kids how to ride horses, but she still does her job. So I think that coaching is it's invaluable. I think it's just invaluable. You learn about yourself, you learn about the people around you, you learn about how you are, how you show up for people, how people show up for you, and of course we talked about DISC and programs like that. It's really trying to understand, like if I were a dentist, I would want to know that whole DISC program, because I want to know the people sitting in my chair, because everyone has different listening, and I want to know how to talk to that person, and how they listen is how I'm going to talk to them, and that's how you can increase communication. And actually, in life, in any business, if you're interviewing for a job, if you do your homework and you try to find out, how's that person going to listen? How are you going to show up for them? Is how you're going to be successful, I think. So the short answer to your question is I'm a junkie for that stuff.
That's awesome. Are there any other programs that have stood out for you, especially? I mean, Landmark, at the time you took it, that was when it was more physical. I took it years later when it was more, it was about the inner mind and etc. And communication, as you said, being in integrity and all those kind of things from a different point. But are there any programs that stand out?
I would say two that stood out to me, like in people probably, 15 years ago would remember the name Tom Peters. I mean, he was a champion. I think one of the things that brought me the most success in my career in life was learning how to treat customers and how to be a champion of customer care. And then that turned me on to really kind of following guys like Sam Walton. And, in my last business, almost in every location, I had a banner put up on the wall that said, a complaint from a customer is it was Sam's most famous saying, a complaint from a customer is an opportunity to keep their job. And unfortunately, if you go around in life today, it is hard to find, especially since COVID. People blame everything on COVID. Just try to find good customer care. It's not that easy to find. You can look in hotels, restaurants, dry cleaners, gas stations, wherever you go. Just try to find good customer care. I'm not saying it's all bad everywhere, but so that was one of my most important, I think, things that I learned in my life about customer care came from Tom Peters and people like him who were teaching that stuff. And then people like books like Good to Great, and my whole shelf is filled up with like how do you find the right people for the job? How do you be the right person when you have the job? And I think you have to invest in yourself, and I don't think enough people invest in themselves. So, and if I had to say that customer care was one of the most important things, and then really learning about expectations and managing expectations. Those were, and of course, I like motivational things. So the Tony Robbins stuff, I get this daily positive because, if you don't have a coach like Pia coaching you every day, some days can get tough. Like, I mean, a lot of stuff hits you in a given day, whether it's work or personal. So I get this little daily positive from a guy named John Gordon. He's one of my favorite positive coaches. And so I read the little daily positives, and they just kind of, every morning I get up, it's on my phone, in my email. And I like the John Gordon stuff, and I like what he says. And it's my little way of like motivating or keeping myself on the right track and not getting into the weeds too much on the negative. My wife and I try this. It doesn't work every day daily. We tried it, but getting up in the morning and saying, okay, let's try today. No complaining, no blaming, no criticizing. And then for the longest time, we did it for quite a while. We come off the track sometimes with doing that, but every once in a while we'll ask each other, how'd you do today with with the three things? And oh my God, it's so hard to go through a day without complaining, blaming, or criticizing. But it's just a nice little exercise to do with yourself. But it's all about, I don't think you have to motivate yourself. Nobody can motivate you. Nobody can reach inside and make you make the changes that you have to make to get yourself where you need to go. So you have to motivate yourself. So, I mean, those are the things that I do personally still to not get into the weeds or get into the negative stuff too often.
Yeah, and one thing that I found that works really good is listening and recording yourself and then hearing yourself speak, because sometimes we say a lot of stuff that we don't even think about, right? Right being one of those words. Anyway, do you listen to meditations or visualizations as a tool to refocus, relax, access targets and desires, etc.?
Oh, I probably should do it a little bit more because like I have trouble shutting my brain off. So I don't sleep the best. I've always thought, 3 or 4 or 5 hours is enough sleep. And the more I read about sleep, how important it is, for longevity, I should probably do more of that. I have a friend who's a dentist in California, and he's a pretty wired up guy. Yeah, I won't say his name because you know who he is, but he's a pretty wired up guy. He's got a successful practices, but he's got a successful practice, but he goes like 200 miles an hour. And he just told me in the last couple of months, he started meditating. So he actually even sleeps in a tent, out in the forest. And, he does a lot of meditation, and he meditates in the morning. Sometimes he'll send me a video where he lives. He lives in California. And so I started thinking about it lately. And of course, my daughter, who's a yoga coach and well-trained, she's been around the world training in yoga. She constantly is telling me, I need to meditate. I usually end up making fun about putting my fingers out like this and going, And then she tells me, Dad, that's not meditating, okay? So I think someday I have to kind of embrace that, I guess. Maybe it'll help me sleep better too and shut my brain off.
I mean, yeah, there's so many different versions. And like I said, my interpretation of that, it doesn't mean that you have to sit still. You can have a walking meditation, for instance, right? I think, it can be meditating on a word or an objective, if you will. It doesn't have to be woo-woo, because I think sometimes that's what people consider it to be. But visualizations are good because it's just about tapping into your subconscious mind, and it can be short things. I mean, it can be 2 minutes breathing, for goodness sake, taking a time out for a minute and taking 5 to 10 deep breaths. That's meditation while focusing on your breath in and out. It's like simple stuff that just gets you to snap out of anything.
One of the things we do is like I think it's a form of meditation that Tina, my wife Tina, and I feel like we're in this grateful phase of our life. Like financially, we're not super rich, but financially we're okay. I don't have to work.
Yeah.
I mean, I can retire and quit, but I like this. And her parents live with us. They're 99 and 98, and she just asked me if I would be okay with that. We built an apartment in our house for them. We don't call it the basement anymore. We call it the first floor. But they're 99 and 98, and they're still in pretty good shape. They forget things, but I start to forget things myself. But we're in this grateful phase, and we tell each other a lot. Like we'll lay in bed and just say, "Hey, well, we're lucky. We're really grateful because you see a lot of COVID. There's a lot of things going on in the world. COVID impacted a lot of people really negatively. There's a lot of bad things going on in the world right now, and we feel very, very grateful. And we tell each other that all the time because we have to remind each other. Get a little hangnail. I go, wow. That's not so bad. Quit complaining so much about that. And we're pretty healthy too. We've had stuff. We've had kids who were sick and some serious stuff, and people passing away and friends passing away and people getting cancer. And but we constantly remind ourselves that we're lucky and that we feel grateful. And I think in some ways it's kind of a form of meditating or making sure we understand where we are right now and how lucky we are. So
absolutely, because it's also when you're doing it on your own, that's one thing. You generate your energy, right? But you two doing it together, you amplify it even more, because then that's the energy that you create not only for yourself, because it's kind of like mindset. It's like a focus, right? When you focus on gratitude, you focus on what you have and what's working, not on the flip side. And what you want, what you focus on expands, as the saying goes. There's many teachings that talks about that. So what's something that you can't live without?
oh my God. So you bring me into a whole arena of like my wife's made so many changes of being healthy and eating healthy and she is trying to influence me, of course, like to go that direction. And it's one of the hardest things for me because I like to cook. Of course, I like to eat the stuff that I cook too. And I probably just like life a little too much. So, one of the challenges I've always had is like, okay, I know I'm pretty healthy, actually very healthy, but, as you get older, some parts start to break down and wear out, and, we've gone a long time, both my wife and I, being pretty healthy. I've had stuff. I had both my knees replaced, which is like has really helped me. Like has made me a lot. I probably abused with sports. I abused my body when I was younger, and some of the parts broke down. But probably one of my challenges, let's say, going forward, is like to step into being healthier a little bit if I want to have more longevity. Um, my Tina's parents are 99 and 98. My parents passed away when I was young, and they were much younger. So I'm not sure I'm going to make it to 99, but my wife has good genes, and I hope she stays that way. And she'd like to have me around a little longer, so I might start to work on some of that other stuff. And Pia, I remember way back you were trying to make me change, and that was 25 years ago. I probably went up and down a little bit on that health thing. I even bought a bicycle now, so I'm riding the bicycle. It's getting cold here, but I was riding the bicycle in the summertime. It really helped my knees. So you never know, Pia. I might come over to that to the good side on health.
So at the end of the day, I think it's about communicating with your body, and that goes with what you put in it and who you surround yourself with. Your body communicates a lot with you. You know, when we have those vibes that no, 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 don't go there or whatever, listen to that and you'll be, I think, living a longer life. So if you could give everyone a message in the world that they would have to listen to, what would that be?
I think it probably it sounds so idealistic, but I do mean it, you know. And I like to think that I've taught my kids the same thing. Treat people like you want to be treated, and I mean that means not just as a supervisor, manager, president, or CEO. It means like going to the store, walking down the street, that person that picks up your garbage, you know, once a week. I mean, where would we be if we didn't have somebody doing that, you know? And so don't think you're bigger than somebody because you're doing this, they're doing that. You know, I have a 22-year-old grandson who lives a couple doors from me, and you know, we hang out a lot. And I just went away with him for a week on his 22nd birthday, you know, in the summertime. We went away, just him and I together for a week. And it was wonderful because we had a chance to really hang out and talk to each other. But, you know, I think it's the most important thing I could tell him. Just treat people like you want to be treated. And he's really good at it. Like, I'm proud of him. I live on a small island. He's learning to be the ferry captain. And I keep hearing from people that live, there's about 200 residents living on this island, just a short 5-minute ride across the river on the ferry that holds about 14 cars. And I thought he wasn't great at book learning like me, like his grandfather. But what I get really proud about is when I hear all the residents around here saying what a great boy he is, how nice he is to people. So I think you know, you have to do more than be nice to people to succeed. But I think it's really, really important. Treat people like you want to be treated.
What do you know for sure?
What do I know for sure? You know, I heard somebody really famous. I can't remember who it was, but he said one of the regrets. He did a lot of interviewing of people, asking them what would they change or what impacted them the most or what would they change looking back. And what he said was they realized, don't always think you have time, because life just, I mean, I've seen it with friends of mine who passed away. I have a couple of things now. One of the young people that I coached that went on to open a lab and become very successful, and he's just at the peak, and he was just diagnosed with cancer and very bad cancer. And so we just don't know what's around the corner. You know, so if you think you have time, you might not have time. So I think it's probably because I'm getting older now. I think about that. I think about it a lot. Like, I see my in-laws sitting in, they're kind of in God's waiting room. They're 99 and 98, and you know, they've had a good life, a healthy life, and but now they know like that it's near the end, and life turns on a dime.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you say that. I think about that as well. And especially when people pass, that's always the reminder to live in the moment. There's
Yeah.
no guarantees that you'll wake up the next day for whatever reason. I mean, often many parents, they think that, oh yeah, of course, their kids are going to outlive them until the unthinkable happens. And yeah,
I,
I
wa-
know you.
I watched a YouTube video. It freaked me out a little bit, to be honest with you, because I'm getting older. But in the video, it was a stark reality. It said in the video, it went back and said, okay, when you pass away, they're going to cremate you. That's what a lot of people are doing now. And then you
Mhm.
just your body turns into dust. And then
Mhm.
in the following weeks, of course, in the first few days, your family are grieving, and in friends. And then in the following weeks, they're grieving. Then eventually that turns into some memories of you. But quite frankly, a year later, everything, not all that stuff that was so important to you, money, is my house good? Do I have the car that's as good as everybody? None of that stuff matters anymore when you get sick or die. And then a year later, you are gone. Like you're just gone and forgotten. Of course, your family goes and visits your grave sometimes if you do that, or they have an urn and they think about you, or they pick up a picture. But mostly you're just gone. It's over. It's done. It's finished. And then 5 years later, there is no more memory. And then eventually those people that remembered you go, and then you're just gone. You're just nothing anymore. A new generation of people comes in and there's just nothing anymore. You're just nothing. You're gone. So that made me, when I watch that, I just saw it about a month ago on YouTube. It was really well done video, but it freaked me out a little bit. But then it made me realize again, like, you better be grateful. You better remember that tomorrow things could change. We just don't know what's around the corner. So I think as you get older, you start to realize, those things, more and more.
Yeah, I remember seeing, like, my dad does ancestral research, whatever, and seeing, a name of a great, great, great grandmother or whatever at the time. And I was like, well, that's, where we all end up sooner or later. We're just a name on some grid. Let me ask you something else. So what's one thing that you've done recently that you would like to be acknowledged for, even though you don't need a pat on your back?
Boy, that's a hard question for me to answer, but because my brain doesn't work that way. But you know, I think I'm good at restructuring things. I'm a good, like, strategic, like, I'll look at something and restructure, and I think that's what we've done with this company, because like the lab business, the dental lab business, dentistry is changing rapidly, and if you don't, I mean, I've worked for some big companies. I won't say the name, but they were like the Queen Mary. The ship couldn't turn very fast if a storm hits. What I like about working with the Orem Group is that it's a family-owned business. Mark has great vision, the CEO, and the company's very agile. So, so we constantly keep making the changes we need to make our company keep moving forward and not stagnant. So I'm in the thick of that stuff, and I like doing it, and I think I'm good at doing it, and I'm working with good people. So, like, it makes it a lot easier. So yeah, I don't know if I answered the question, but
absolutely. So you are a man who thrives on change. You're great at restructuring organizations, but you're like one of the best, like I said, one of the best bosses, so to speak, that I've ever had, because you care, and because you're such a generous human being. You bring out the best in them. So that's what I want to acknowledge you for, being. I see a little dog there. I want to acknowledge you for being just an awesome human being, because you're like this. I mean, you're like one of the most loved people. Like, anyone I talk to of our old, friends, so to speak, everyone just loves you. So, that's just a sign of who you are. So what you give out, you get back. And you've always been a great leader. You exemplify absolutely what a rock star leader is. So
there's probably a few people who would disagree with you, Pia, but thank you. I am proud of, like, I'm proud of that, because, like, it is important to me. Yeah.
So what's something in your life that you're proud of?
Yeah, I think I'm proud that I can, I've made a lot of changes. I've been with different companies, and when I see people that I worked with in the past, it's always a good meeting. Like, for the most part, I always enjoy seeing people that I met with, and I get some comments about people who have said I helped them get started, and that's probably the thing I'm most proud of, was like helping people move on and grow. So, and I've always tried to replace myself. Like, every business I'm in, I just try to replace myself and sneak out the back door. When I for 40 years I ran a lab here in Windsor. When I decided to move on and do some other things, and then I joined Noble Barca to work with you, I didn't have any party or retirement party. I just kind of slipped out the back door, and my son and daughter and the team they just kept the business going very well. When I came back to see some of the dentists that I work with, they said, oh, you're not there anymore. And I really like that. Like, I really like that. I could just sneak out the back door. And I think it's really, really important. And it's all about bringing people along and helping them grow. So, I mean, I would just say I have lots of experience in this business, and I like to share it too.
And that's the key. You delegate, you empower others, and that's why you can have a seamless transition instead of keeping all the secrets for yourself and there being, customers to say the least, but also staff suffering in the process, so to speak. So that's another great sign of a great leader, when you're not driven by ego in that sense, right? I mean, you have your personal targets, but your focus is still on the people you serve, so to speak, right? And that's awesome. So what would you say that you're doing when you're in a state of flow?
Like and again, my job is like, I'm like really kind of, because I'm working remotely, I'm not really in the thick of, we have a number of locations, so I'm not really there managing those operations. So my job daily is working with the people who manage those operations, and keeping them motivated, managing their expectations of me, managing, I know I have expectations of them. And again, we come back to the word communication. So we do, I would say some days I feel a little bit meeting to death. We have a lot of meetings, but, this company that I work for, never worked with better communicators. I mean, we have a lot of meetings. We use Chad Gibson as our communication coach, and he keeps the meetings where they need to be on time. He makes people show up on time as well. Don't be late. Don't make excuses. No pontificating or ranting, and that's hard. Get in and out, say what you have to say fast. But I'm not so good at that. So that's my job, like daily, just keeping and really what I'm trying to do also is have a succession plan. I probably do that in every job I've had. It's like, okay, how do I just kind of slip out the back door, and there's not going to be a gap, and I don't try to keep my arms around things like, in a job protection program, I want to be replaced. That's, I think, one of the best things you can do as a leader to bring other people along. There's an old saying too about, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. And I probably haven't been so great because I've never put money at the front. I like money as much as anybody else, and you need money to live. And if you want to go on vacations, which I like to do, you need money to do that stuff. But I've never put money at the front. I've always felt like if I do the job, then I'm going to be successful, both financially and feel good inside about what I'm doing. And if it's not working, if I'm not getting where I need to go, then I just move on and do the next thing, and I've always tried, you mentioned it about people who like me in the past. I've always tried not, and it hasn't worked. It's not perfect, but I've tried not to burn a bridge. When I leave somewhere, I always tried not to burn a bridge, because that's important too, because the dental industry is a small industry, profession, whatever you want to call it. And if you burn bridges, that comes back to haunt you sometimes. So I've tried not to burn bridges. I've made lots of changes. Like I said, my shtick is I can't keep a job, but I've had some wonderful. I've done startups, like 5 or 6 startups, and I can't say enough. I've had a wonderful career, and I feel grateful.
Yeah. One thing I think also that sets you up for success is one of the books that you recommended to me that I've been recommending to other people when you set up a company. Which one do you think it is?
Oh my God, I've given so many books away. Probably the one book that I gave away the most was How Small Businesses Fail. And it's all about, if you try to leave a company, if you're a hairdresser or a cook, a chef, or a electrician, and you think, I want to start my own business, it's one thing to be able to do that, but you can't just be the technician. You can't just be the hairdresser or the chef if you open a restaurant, or the electrician. You've got to be able to manage the business aspects of the business. That means accounting, finance, or get help to do it. And then you also have to be a marketer too. You have to market your business. You can't just be the technician or, and by that I mean the chef or the person doing the things. And I've seen and it's a statistic that most small businesses do fail because the technician, the hairdresser, the chef, the cook, they just didn't know how to manage the marketing and the business aspect of the business. They were still a good cook, a good hairdresser, but there's a lot to doing that. And I think that was one of my favorite books. I Think and Grow Rich was also another good book of mine. It was just a lot about motivating yourself and setting objectives. Now I can't remember what book I gave you or
The E-Myth Revisited with Michael E. Gerber.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's actually along the same lines as like why small businesses fail. Like that's really what it was all about.
Yeah.
And I think I see even my own couple of my own kids tried to start businesses and they didn't do it the right way. And and I see it all around me because I have an eye on that stuff because I know the importance of it. And listen, I didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs. I came from a family of workers, blue collar workers, and I grew up in wasn't a very affluent family, and but I don't know, I got this bug for owning my own businesses, but because I read that book, I put those two things in place that I needed. I hired an accountant right away who was my bookkeeper accountant. When I started my own labs, I worked for a lab for 20 years, and then I started my own labs. But the first thing I did is make sure I had the right financial person side by side with me to manage that. And I was always pretty good at marketing and sales because I like people. I got a big mouth. But at the financial side, I needed help with that. And that was probably one of the most important things I did. If you're going to start a business, you really need to read that book first and then manage those things.
What are 3 words you would hope others would use to describe you?
I would say the 3 words would be passion, because where I didn't have ability, I think I filled in with passion, and motivated. I've always been very motivated. Caring. I think I care about people. I care about the people around me, and especially my family. And yeah.
Absolutely. I would say that you're definitely a caring, you're what I call a heart-centered man. And because when you used to share about your kids and Tina and friends or whatever, it was always with heart. So if you could
I think I'm driven too. Like I think
yeah.
driven. Like I mean, I like change. A lot of people don't like change, and I said it earlier. But I've said to myself a lot. Next, okay, next. What am I going to do next? Now, of course, I'm in the last quarter mile, so to speak. So I'm not driven to make any change, but I'm driven to help this company grow. And I hope I plan on doing it for a couple more years.
Yeah. Oh, I can see there being change still because it's part of your MO. So if you could ask one person, anyone in the world, a question, who or what would you ask?
I would ask Elon Musk what's most important to him. It can't be money. He's got so much money. He just keeps developing new things that are breakthrough things. Like so, more than anybody, I think, at least in my lifetime, that I've read about or watched on TV or came across. So.
Cool. So is there anything else you would like to say or share that you haven't?
Yes. I would just like to say thank you to all the great people that I've worked with that have helped me grow, because like I grew and got better and had some successes because of the people I was working with. So I have to say thank you to like so many people that I could never name or make a list, but they know who they are, and some of them I still talk to, and people like Bob Membrino, you remember that name? He reaches out every once in a while too. Like there's a lot more, but yes, that would be it. Thank you to all those people who helped me.
Well, thank you, Mike, for doing this interview with me, if you will, as I interview great leaders that I know and love. So that's it for today, everyone. Thank you very much for watching or listening, and have an awesome day.
Thanks, Pia.
Bye.